And thank you, Dr. Lonnie Zwagenbaum, for those thoughtful closing remarks. I had no idea you're a Star Wars fan. Wisdom and perspective of well-earned experience you have brought. Do or do not, there is no try, KBHN believes. What a final conference day this has been. I know you've been waiting a long time and your tushes are probably getting sore, so I won't make my final reflections too long. The day began with some welcome remarks from the Honorable Mike Lake and his son Jaden. They reminded us that this conference is for kids and adults with neurodevelopmental challenges and their parents as much as it is for researchers and service providers. It was a perfect introduction to a power-packed panel that followed, that gave us the history and context to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and in particular to kids with disabilities. The argument for the need for the CRPD was made forcefully. What we heard next was sobering, that while Canada endorses the CRPD, it's middle of the pack at best when it comes to hewing to its principles. This is something that was made clear during COVID-19 when people with disabilities had their rights and privileges violated repeatedly. Numerous examples of this were presented, from loss of internet access to loss of income, isolation, lack of PPE, lack of personal support workers. Rachel Martins reminded us that when you ask parents, have you ever considered your child's rights? The answer is usually no. The panel put systemic ableism into perspective as the elephant in the room that must be acknowledged and confronted. We heard a passionate defense of what the federal government has done so far to address inequities, but we also heard that pleas that temporary funding be replaced with something more permanent. We heard a call for an end to sheltered workshops, a movement that is certainly picking up steam right across the country. In the afternoon, we had a session entitled The Road to Canada's National Autism Strategy, the policy development process and learnings from community stakeholder collaborations, CASDA and KBHN and their involvement in the development of a national autism strategy as mandated by the federal government. KBHN fellows gave a progress update of a process that launched in January to suggest actionable policies by the federal government. First, we heard about programs funded by the government in support of the principles in a national autism strategy. We heard about lack of sharing of information and best practices. There was a call for national leadership on this. A call to leverage off of pre-existing legislation to expand the rights of people with disabilities, national data collection and better communication, cross-Canada effort to optimize agency coordination, and multidisciplinary centers of excellence for autism research. We heard that 33% of people with ASD are employed, just 33%, and that many of them are underemployed. We heard about a policy brief on competitive integrative employment, beginning with pre-employment, training and life skills, job readiness and executive function, and some key recommendations to reinvest in pre-employment programs, an autism-specific lens and embedding in secondary and post-secondary schools, sustainable autism-specific and pre-employment programs, inclusive workplaces that celebrate unique abilities, increased training within existing programs, a commitment to workplace accommodation funds to support employees, and the dissemination of best practices, especially work from home options. We heard about the need to design programs that reflect the fact that Canada has a diverse population and has urban and rural centers. So it can't be one size that fits all. The thing that astonished me the most about that panel presentation is that most of this took place during the worst pandemic in a century. So kudos to them for that. And finally, Dr. Lonnie Zwagenbaum summarized the week and the decade in the history of Kids Brain Health Network. I'm almost done, but I did want to take a moment to thank a few people who behind the scenes have kept me well briefed and on time. Anthony, who produced this amazing conference, Danielle, who wrote many of the words I had to say, and Andrew, who ably directed a very complex production from a very, very far distance. Doug as well, who ran GatherTown, and Vanessa, who ran my Ask the Expert session. And now to close out, finally and completely, I'm going to hand over the reins to KBHN Chief Executive Officer, Nicola Lewis. Take it away, Nicola.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm going to pass it first of all over to James, and then I'll follow on.
Thanks very much. And Brian, I have to say, even with support, that was an incredibly impressive summary. Well, here we are, everyone. And we're going to end the 2020 Kids Brain Health Network the way we began, by once again acknowledging that the land in which the Kids Brain Health Network is situated is the traditional unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples. Of note, the Kwantlen, Katsi, Semiahmoo, Kwikwetlam, Kikite, and Tawasin First Nations. We acknowledge their long-standing relationship with this territory, which remains unceded. We pay respect to all Indigenous peoples in this region and from all nations across Canada. We acknowledge the traditional knowledge keepers, both young and old, and we honor their courageous leaders, past, present, and future. Well, it's up to, it's left really just for Nikki and I to thank the people who have made this conference such an overwhelming success. We were going into really unknown territory, and I think, judging by the responses, we have all learned as we wanted to from each other and from all of the contributors. I want to start by thanking you, the participants who made this conference a success. Everyone from our board members, our researchers and their partner organizations, our trainees, our parents and families. This conference was for you and about you, and it was your contribution, your participation that really made it successful. Our programming committee did an absolutely outstanding job, as I think you can all agree, and there are too many of them to name them all individually, so to prevent my leaving somebody off, we list them here, and I have to point out they took this job on really before knowing what they were getting into, I think. And I want to give a special thank you to Dr. Jennifer Zwicker, who chaired the programming committee and who took on the role, again, before the pandemic started. So I think Jennifer probably had a completely different thought in her mind of what kind of conference she would be putting on. But she and her committee rapidly pivoted as the world did to knowing that we would have to be an online conference and putting on just a tremendous show for all of us. They were backed up by our trainee committee, which I think is the next slide. The trainee working group, led by Doug Swanson, again, an amazing job in supporting all aspects of the meeting, from planning to walking us around the gather space and making sure some of us who are sometimes technologically challenged didn't get lost in that interactive space. You made all of the sessions so much more fun and enjoyable, supporting all of the participants in the Ask the Expert sessions and being in the background to support all of the gather space sessions as they went on. To the chairs and presenters for all of these sessions. There are too many to name. You know who you are. We know who you are. We know you better. You shared your personal stories as well as your expertise, and we couldn't have asked any more or any better of a group of really dedicated individuals across a broad spectrum. And a special thank you to Dr. Cindy Blackstock, our Fraser Mustard awardee this year, for an inspiring start to the conference that's led us, I think, really set the context for the many conversations and discussions that came afterwards. So thank you again to all of you who made this such a success. And Nikki, I'll turn it over to you for your final thoughts.
Thank you, James. What a conference. I hope you found it, well, the presentations and the discussions as as engaging and accelerating as I did. I too want to send my deep appreciation to Jen Zwicker for chairing our conference program committee and for all her hard work and efforts, and also to everybody who James has just recognized. I think our worst fear is that we would be hosting a virtual conference and that nobody would attend and that we'd be all talking to ourselves, but that has not been the case. And again, I want to thank all of our registrants for joining us and sharing our collective work and our passion for a better world for children and for families. As you can appreciate, as Brian has already mentioned, a virtual conference like this needs many hands and many levels of expertise. So I just want to take this time to thank those of our team on the production and the technical and the logistical side of hosting the conference. I'd like to take a moment to thank those who you do not see, well, the audience perhaps cannot see, on that production, technical and logistical side. So the slide that you see before you now recognizes SmartLink Strategies team, our writers, our media, our translators and our visuals. And so, but firstly, I want to give a special call out to Anthony Santelises and the SmartLink Strategies. They were our corporate conference organizers. They supported the program committee over the last 10 months and all aspects of hosting this virtual conference. So thank you so much for your professionalism and really your organizational prowess. To the production and technical team, and that's Fabio and Eric and Andrew and Arain. You so professionally executed the light, sound and action of the backdrop of hosting this conference, and you worked tirelessly behind the scenes in terms of the video productions with some of our presenters, with the poster presentations, and helped ensure that our conference was a technical success. So thank you all so much. And to our KBHN staff, to Danielle and Doug and Alice and Sharon, their responsibilities crossed communications. We've already mentioned the networking platform and Gather site, registration, working with our different committees and all aspects of supporting the conference. You know, they've also worked tirelessly, and you know, James and I and everyone can't thank them enough for the work that they do and being part of a team and enterprise. To our sponsors, you really generously supported the conference this year, this virtual conference, which was a first and may not be the last as we move into this new way of working. You actively participated and networked on the networking sessions, and we really appreciate your ongoing support and your partnering with us on ongoing work. Finally, to Brian Goldman, you know, with unbounding enthusiasm and energy, you're our master of ceremony, not only keeping us on track over the last 4 days, but providing incisive and informative reflections. As a parent of a son with FASD, you know, you have a deep understanding of the challenges and the needs of families. So Brian, from all of us, a really heartfelt thank you for being with us over the 4 days of the conference. So this brings us to a conference close. We ask that you do take time to respond to our electronic survey, which will be coming in the next day or next few days. It might be in your in-basket on Monday maybe. We really need to hear from you. We really need to hear about your experiences of this virtual conference and really to give us some ideas for next year's conference. So with that, from all of us at KBHN, you know, take care, be safe and stay well. And we'll see you next year. Thank you.